Lilo and Stitch is the biggest surprise of the year. This is easily the best Disney live action remake for me, bar none. And so much of that is from Maia, who plays Lilo, who is just so adorable. And just to see what they've done in this film, I think it's just so special.
They've done such a fantastic job of bringing Lilo and Stitch from the animated world to reality. There are things that they didn't compromise on, and which is so important. And Maia Kealoha is really the heart of this film. She steals it completely, and really enjoyed her work.
I did not expect to feel the sadness that I felt. I didn't expect to go through the fun times, the sad times, the crazy chaotic times in a Lilo and Stitch film. They had more freedom just to like give you that grounded story, but also be an alien story of this cute fuzzy mess ball. And I think it's a great story for kids to watch.
Aloha and welcome to the Movie Podcast. My name is Shahbaz, and joining alongside me here on this sunny beachside in beautiful Hawaii that we're in right now. Well, I'm going to be honest with you right now, the weather is pretty much as hot as Hawaii. I am joined by, of course, none other than my fellow Movie Podcast crew, which is Daniel. Daniel, how you doing? I was afraid that you were going to do it, but you know what?
It was pretty good though, right?
It was
scared.
Really good.
I was scared my voice was going to crack, but it was okay. Oh, God, Stitch.
Oh, man, that's not it at all. That's not even close. And, of course, we have Anthony. Anthony, how you doing?
Hi.
Oh, wow. You both did the voice.
It was really good.
Wow.
Chris Saunders, your days are numbered, buddy.
Ohana means family. Family means Ohana.
Wow, I get this is so weird. I'm not used to Anthony doing voices on the show, so this is
of all voices too.
I know, like, Stitch of all things
all
too.
Voices,
for some reason, as a kid, I could. That's the voice I could do, and I just kept it as I got older.
I love it.
You know, Stitch is in an interesting spot to like in the register. It's like if you could do Stitch, you could also do like Jar Jar Binks. You could also, if you really tighten your throat, you could do like Elmo. You could like get to all these different like characters with distinct voices if you try.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. And again, we're not voice actors, so we're gonna leave all of that to the professionals. And trust me, as someone who does a lot of voices on this show, I hated every second that you guys did that. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not going to even attempt it, eh? You're not going to go for your Stitch. You have to give the people a Stitch now. At this point,
I'm unprepared. I'm caught a little off guard, and I don't think I'm gonna do it. And it's gonna be
Stitch shy right now.
I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be like, "Hello," you know, like it's not gonna be good. I just
kind of sound like Fat Albert, dude.
Hey. Yeah, I can't do it. But if you're wondering what movie we're talking about based on the voices and the name and the title and everything, we are talking about Disney's Lilo and Stitch. This is the live action reimagining of the beloved animated film that came out in 2002, right? 2.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy how long it's been. Crazy.
It's a long time.
But you know what's weird? Like Lilo and Stitch was always one of those animated Disney films for me that I watched older. I mean, I was 11 years old, so I wasn't like an adult. But, you know, to me, it's such a fresh thing that I'm like, oh, I'm surprised they're remaking this right now. They're reimagining it for a more live action world, because I think we're so used to seeing the much older Disney animated films kind of getting this treatment. So it's interesting that we're kind of here at this point of the more recent Disney ones. What do you think is next? You think we're going to get Tarzan?
Oh, I mean, like, I feel like Tarzan's one of those characters that, because there's so many versions of Tarzan in the world already, we're probably not going to get that one from Disney. But again, never say never. I mean, we have Moana, which is like the most like, hey, we just had this as an animated film, a CG animated film, and now we're getting it in a live action form. I'm just trying to think. You know, was it Treasure Planet? Is that the other? This that came after?
That was
Lilo
from that
Stitch,
era
right?
of Disney where, like, yeah, it was like
it was
you
right
were
after
either
the
on board,
right?
you were on board for Treasure Planet, or you weren't.
Yeah, like it was
I
like
believe it was
you look
Matt
at the
Damon,
Renaissance period. Yeah, like you look at that Renaissance period of Disney. We've pretty much covered them all, right? We had Little Mermaid, we had Beauty and the Beast, we had Aladdin. So we've had all of those films. I'm probably missing a few that were in there.
Yeah,
Lion King.
there's a lot.
Pocahontas, maybe? Like,
we don't have it yet, right? No.
Like, so do you think they want to even kind of venture into that territory yet with Pocahontas. It feels like it's something that they would have already, but now it's the CG films.
There was a Colin Farrell film where he played
The New
John
World,
Smith.
I believe, right?
New World, yeah. That was
Yeah.
a Pocahontas story.
That
Did I tell you
was.
like Ed Norton's related to Pocahontas? I know it's so off topic.
Yes,
I came across.
you mentioned that to us.
That was wild.
That's your favorite fact to tell people at parties,
Yes,
actually.
I've told it so many times.
Yeah,
Because it's
people
like
always
imagine
leave you when you start.
Imagine
telling
you
this
go
fact.
to one of those like genealogy, like this is where you come from, like knowing your roots, and the guy's like, yeah, you're related to Pocahontas. That's your great grandmother. It's just like,
Sure.
wicked.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So just to confirm, Lilo and Stitch came out in 2002, and Treasure Planet came out later that year. So Lilo and Stitch is June, Treasure Planet was November. So both of them were in 2002.
And I guess I think Treasure Planet was more skewed to the older demographic. It didn't. I watched it at home. I don't think I watched it in theaters, and I don't remember much from it. But we're not talking about Treasure Planet today. We are talking about Treasure Island, aka Hawaii, aka Lilo and Stitch. You see how I kind of brought that back together?
It all comes back around.
It all comes back around. We are here to talk about this movie. I'm not going to spoil our reactions here. I'm going to get Daniel to start in just a few minutes. But before I do, we're the Movie Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. All our show notes down below have all the information that you need. We have some interviews that will be coming out for this movie. A returning friends of the show. You know what I love about Friends? They always come back. They always want to say, hey, we want to talk to you guys again. So super grateful for director Dean Fleischer to the Movie Podcast. We spoke to him 3 years ago for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. That was a really, really fun interview. And we were also joined by producer Jonathan Eric. So a really fun conversation. We really talk a lot about spoilers. I'm going to put air quotes there of some really fun things. So if you don't want to get spoiled from this 23-year-old film, maybe avoid it then. But no, it's a really good interview. And if you're a fan of Lilo and Stitch, it's something you definitely want to check out. Huge shout out to our friends at Disney Studios Canada for inviting us to watch this movie and also doing these reviews. We are so excited to talk about it. So Daniel, please kick us off with your first Aloha reactions.
Let me tell you something right now. This year started, Disney gave us Captain America, A Brave New World, and then followed that up with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. A really shaky start to the year. And you look at what they've given us in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, the 1-2 mammoth punch of Thunderbolts being fantastic and Lilo and Stitch being amazing. I'm blown away. I'm honestly, Lilo and Stitch is the biggest surprise of the year. And this, without a doubt, this is easily the best Disney live action remake for me, bar none. Nothing comes close to this. What Dean and the team did with this film is just make something that's so joyous, so heartfelt, but also one of the funniest movies I've seen in a really long time. We were cracking up the entire time watching this film. And that makes me so happy because obviously the original Lilo and Stitch is a really funny movie, but when you're in the realm of live action, there's a lot that you could do that you can't get away with on the animated side, and obviously vice versa, you could do that. But this film is so funny, and so much of that comes from expanding, you know, the cast of what we've seen in the original film. Obviously, they make some cuts as well too, and we're going to get into kind of all the changes and all the differences to this. But just to open up our conversation, this film, Lilo and Stitch, the 2025 version of this, captures everything that made the original film so special. It captures the chaos, it captures the charm, but it just really dials into the heart. It dials into the humor. And so much of that is from Maia, who plays Lilo, who is just so adorable and a perfect recreation of Stitch. Obviously, Chris Saunders is back voicing Stitch, and I think they nailed the exact look for Stitch of how he would look in live action. I think, you know, for so long, whenever we've had these films that bring elements that are animated to live action, I think of Little Mermaid. I'm like, why does Flounder look like that? Or in Beauty and the Beast, I'm like, why does his face look like that? You know, and then you look at you look at Pinocchio, and it's like, wow, Pinocchio looks exactly like the animated film, but this is not a great movie. So it's like you have these trade-offs, and then Lilo and Stitch, we're lucky that we have these alien creatures that, they make changes, obviously, that, we're going to have them as humans for a lot of it. But Stitch is always Stitch. And I think it's such a perfect recreation. He's so fuzzy. He's so fluffy. He's so cute. And just to see what they've done in this film, I think it's just so special. And this is the bar. This is the bar of what we should always be looking at when we're making these films. It's not something that we're not making a shot-for-shot remake. Yes, there's a lot of elements that are the same, but we're making something that can stand on its own and just be a great film in its own regard.
Hey, you're absolutely right, Daniel. Like, this is truly Disney's best live-action reimagining. They've done such a fantastic job of bringing Lilo and Stitch from the animated world to reality. There are things that they didn't compromise on, and which is so, so, so important. And Maia Kealoha is really the heart of this film. She steals it completely, and really, really enjoyed her work. But Anthony, please let us know your reactions to this movie as well.
The biggest takeaway that I didn't get from the original animation was the gravity of loss with a family that deals with a sister who has to be a parent, the other sister who has to cope with that understanding that my sister is not my sister anymore. She's my guardian. And just the trials of that whole, going through the social worker and losing someone who you care about because you can't hold down a job, or like those things is what kind of elevates the story. As much as there's the funness of Stitch being around, but even the gravity of his character being in this live action just feels so much more realer than what we got in the animation, because of course it's when they designed it was more of a kid's film, but kids have evolved, they've grown older, they've gotten older, they're a little bit more mature, they'll understand the loss and the gravity of loss and dealing with those types of emotions, which I think Dean just captures really well. I did not expect to feel the sadness that I felt. I didn't expect to go through the fun times, the sad times, the crazy chaotic times in a Lilo and Stitch film. Like that's something that Dean was able to bring to this version of Lilo and Stitch. And I think something like that is, for this type of story, works so well. And even for, when we look at Snow White and Cinderella, they're very similar to what they were brought, like that's how they were written, right? Like their original storytelling. But with Lilo and Stitch, I think they had more freedom just to like give you that groundness, but also be an alien story of this cute, fuzzy, chaotic mess ball that's just all he knows is to be not bad, but like he does bad things, but doesn't mean that you're a bad person, as they say in the movie. And I think it's a great story for kids to watch.
Yeah, I want to jump off what you were just saying there towards the end, Anthony, because like you look at the world that Lilo and Stitch was coming into in 2002, where you're coming off this incredible renaissance of films, very traditional films, very beautiful movies that obviously have standed the test of time, with Aladdin, with Little Mermaid, with Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, all of those films. And Stitch coming in really was that, that wrench into it. Like this, look at this crazy little thing that's joining this universe of beloved films. And they really played into that, obviously, in the marketing. And we've seen that, with the marketing of this one, where it's like, here's Stitch coming into, Beauty and the Beast, and here's Stitch, saying hi to Aladdin and Jasmine. And it's like, it's cool seeing those moments, and he could be that troublemaker, that bringer of chaos. But then you're bringing in that layer of like, oh, hold on, we're going a little deeper than the animated film goes. You're giving Nani more to do. She's someone who has dreams. She's aspiring, obviously, to, to have a job, to go off and go to school. There's extra layers that we're getting here that, having just rewatched the animated film, I'm like, oh, we didn't get this as much in the animated film. But of course, this is an animated film. You're not going to get as much fleshed out, because you could be okay with being a little bit not as deep in it, but you really get to see those payoffs here, and the changes that they make, I think, really do work.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we talked to Dean about was, some of the liberties that animation has. Like one of the things that he pointed out to us that I don't know why I never really gave it much thought, but he was like, in the animated film, Lilo's like a 6-year-old, but she's as tall as a toddler. And like that works in the animated world, but here it is obviously a height difference. So it's all these things that you kind of have to factor in. Like, yeah, these changes per se make more sense. And again, we have characters that are not coming back from the animated film. We have characters that have more expanded roles from the animated film. So all the decisions that the team has made here totally work because they really are telling the same story, but in a much more thoughtful way. And like you said, Daniel, you're having this depth to the characters with Nani, especially about school and being a mother or a sister, that I feel like a lot of older sisters or the eldest in the family can really relate to. Something that maybe the animated film didn't touch on as much. It definitely showed the chaos of being a single parent, but I actually felt more like the Nani here was really a kid thrown into a situation that they really were not prepared for.
And I think the color tone of this movie is not your typical Disney film. It has a darker color tone, so it's a little bit more cinematic in the way it's told. It's not whimsy as you would normally get out of a live action. It felt like, oh, this is very much like Marcel the Shell, where the home is very important to the story. It almost felt like it was shot on film at points because Stitch is so well like animated. Like I think he's one of the best looking live action, and specifically him. I can't say for the whole entire movie, but I think they really focused on Stitch blending in with the live action background. And it just felt real. Like it's like this is, and it had a lot of like hand camera movements, and it just felt like it was a little chaotic in its way of storytelling than you would get out of like a typical Disney movie. And it feels like this is not a Disney movie, and that's amazing because like that's the elevation. Like get out of that mindset and be something else. And I think that's what stood out for me.
Yeah, and I think like when you say like it doesn't feel like a Disney movie, I think to kind of go off of that, it doesn't feel like some of the live action Disney films that we've been getting, right? Like you look at Snow White, a film that I went to go see in theaters, not a really good looking film. Like there's shots and I'm like, oh, this feels like I'm all on a blue screen. I'm all like, these characters are not there. If Stitch doesn't work, this movie does not work. And I think he works so well. I think the fur is a really cool choice because in my head, like I know Stitch was fluffy and he had fur, but he's fuzzier than I thought he would be from the animated film to this. But I think it works so well in live action because our minds are like, oh, he is an animal. I could get behind that. And you have like these big eyes. And it's like, you definitely know that like Jon Favreau was looking at like Grogu and Baby Yoda and being like, oh, if we make our own Stitch, if Stitch works, we could do that for Tyr. Like these, like it's the eyes, like it's the eyes, man. Like you could always
just Chico.
It's the eyes, man. It's just so adorable, right?
It's definitely the eyes, and I think you have somebody like Dean who is a big fan of the original film, that they brought that love to the character. And again, something from our interview as well that Daniel, that you touched upon was Lilo's point of view, and a lot of this movie is shot from much lower angles sometimes because it really wants to put us right behind Lilo and in that character. Something that I also really loved about this movie was the music. There are some original songs that kind of come in here, but the ode to Hawaiian music, and also of course we have Elvis, which isn't as big of a plot point in this one than it was in the animated film. I felt like in the animated film, Elvis was a really, really big thing. In this one, there's a couple gags for sure, but I think it works better this way because in the original film, it was almost trying to create some sort of identity that didn't need to be there. Whereas here, it's a nice nod to the animated film and kind of moves on. But the music is fantastic. The score is fantastic. The performances are also fantastic. This is just such a joyous surprise. And like, you have really funny characters, like you have Zach Galifianakis, Billy Magnussen, who are so funny in their roles. Hannah Waddingham, who's going to have a banger opening weekend here with Mission and Lilo and Stitch. Just really great characters, and some things are just really damn funny in this movie. Like I was laughing with you guys harder than I was expecting.
It's a hilarious movie, and you mentioned Peakley and Jumba, who get a much more expanded role. They're not in their alien forms as much. We obviously do see them a bunch in it, but they don't
Gotta
take
save
the
that
human,
budget.
you know, they gotta save the budget. But again, I think those are choices that make sense because now you have them, they're just as zany and crazy, but it's almost funnier coming off of like these human characters. But obviously we don't get what's his name? We don't get Gantu.
Captain Gunta. Yeah,
in this
Guntu.
one.
Yeah.
We don't get him in this version. Again, I think that's a concession that it feels fine. Like, yes, he's a cool presence, but I think Jumba gets a little bit more of an expanded, you know, villainous role in this one to see, which I think in this film makes sense to do that. Some other just little nitpicks that I think, obviously, when you're doing a film like this, some of the eye lines, some of the, you know, the CG characters aren't always going to line up with what the human characters did when they shot on set that day. But CG wise, everything looked great. And I think the biggest thing, obviously, as we said, was Stitch. Like, if you make Stitch work, you're going to make this movie work. The space stuff all looks really cool. There's that pink alien that's in the original film, but also in this one that gets a little bit more to do, who, again, has some of the best lines in the movie. But there's just a lot in this film that was just really surprising, and how you could take something that's already beloved and not, you know, I think take something and try and do a different spin on it. It's like, no, this is the movie that you know and love. But I honestly think this is a better film than the original one. And, you know, people may come for me in the comments and think I'm crazy for saying that, but I genuinely cried a couple different times towards the end of this film because they made such an incredible world, and
it was very loud.
I wasn't crying that loud, by the way.
You were like,
just like
you were sobbing, and we were like, I was like, I don't know who he is, and they're like, sir,
it was Toy Story 3 level. It was Toy Story 3 level of crying. No, but like, there's some genuine like moments where I'm like, wow, this is going to a level that I did not think it was going to go. I think Stitch is a more lovable character in this one. I think he could be really mean in the original animated film, which is fine. That's the character that he was. But I think the way they use him is really nice, and the way Jumba and Peakley are used in this, where they're not always kind of constantly watching Lilo and Stitch. I think it works a lot better as a story point.
The last thing I want to touch on before we jump to our final recommendations here is it's nice to see returning characters from the animated film, like Tia Carrere, who was Nani in the animated film and now is playing a social worker in this one. And you have Jason Scott Lee, who played David in the animated, who is now playing Nani's boss. So it's really fun how sometimes these characters kind of show up. Something also really quickly before I touch on the final reactions here is I think Courtney B. Vance as Cobra Bubbles was also not maybe the strongest character in the movie. I think his scenes kind of just bogged this pace of this movie a bit down, and I think when everything else is happening, you want to go back to the fun a little bit.
I wish he had more to do, because they kind of split up. They kind of split up the social worker in CIA character in this one than they do from the original. So Tia Carrere takes on the role of the social worker. Courtney B. Vance is just CIA guy in this, so they kind of split them up that way.
But let's get to our final recommendation. So Anthony, please kick us off here on the high wave.
Yeah, this is a watch it. I think it's fun for the whole family. Kids will enjoy it. The adults bringing the kids will enjoy it. There's something for everyone. And I think that story, that real emotional story about dealing with loss, overcoming it, and being a family just really hit me hard. So I think it's a definite watch it.
Love that. I will go next here and say that this is also a definite watch it. Lilo and Stitch is just one of the best Disney live action reimaginings. Dean Fleischer Camp has crafted something that is so joyous. It has so much wonder in it, and it's so deliciously evil at times with how Stitch is. Stitch, cute as ever, but also still destructive. What a handful that guy is. And Maia Kealoha is really the heart of this film as Lilo. She just is so cute, so adorable, and it blows my mind that she's only like 6-7 years old. Like, what a performance that she pumps out here. But yeah, Daniel, please go ahead.
Lilo and Stitch is one of the best movies you'll watch this year. It is the best Disney live action film that we have gotten since we started getting these movies. There was so much heart, there was so much humility and hope in this, and Maia just for a 6 or 7 year old just carries this film on her back. Stitch is as wonderful as you remember, and even better this time around. And again, when you think of the lasting power of Stitch and his constant presence in Disney parks and Disney media, I think this film is going to be the first $1 billion movie of the year. Truthfully, I think it's going to make a lot of money. I'm going to call my shot here for that, but it's just out of this world. It's hilarious and heartwarming, and you definitely should go watch it because you are going to love it. You're going to fall in love with this world again.
Do you think it'll beat Ethan Hunt that weekend?
It will.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Ethan Hunt is getting his lunch eaten by Stitch this weekend.
It's so unfortunate because, we need a win for Mr. Mission Impossible here, but
just choose better weekends,
just
Mission.
Choose
please.
better weekends.
Stop doing this.
Going up against Lilo and Stitch, that's dangerous. But
oh man.
We're so grateful for everyone listening to our review here. Of course, we have the movie podcast. You can see all of our show notes down below. Huge shout out to our friends again at Disney Studios Canada for inviting us to watch this movie and doing these amazing interviews. Go check out our interviews as well. That was this time with the movie podcast, and we'll see you next.
Took him a baba.